Hello, hello, ¿qué pasó? My name is Lucis, and in a previous video I mentioned that I have selective mutism, so I thought it would be a good idea to take a moment to explain what that is in case you've never heard of it. While now it is considered its own diagnosis, for me it's an extension of my PTSD. And basically, what it means is, physiologically, there's nothing wrong with me, and obviously I can speak because I'm speaking right now. But psychologically, when I find myself in situations where I am super stressed out or I feel unsafe, I shut down and I lose the ability to speak. Sometimes if I try to fight through it, I will end up stuttering. But yeah, 9 times out of 10 when it hits, I can't even make a sound at all. I just physically can't do it. It's hard to explain. I suppose it's like this. Let's say you have a lit candle sitting in front of you, and you keep trying to stick your hand in the flame, but everything in you keeps saying, no, don't do it, no, don't do it, and it keeps getting in the way. And even if you do manage to actually make contact with the flame, you yank away really fast because it hurts, and that's normal. But for me, it's like that, only the opposite. I can't speak. It's definitely a lot better, way more bearable in recent years, but when I was a child, it was very difficult. And I mean, nowadays, it can still hit. It's just, I mean, the funny thing about it is, I never had any problems with public speaking. Like, even when I was a kid, something about being on a stage didn't scare me like it should, like it does normal people. For whatever reason, that was the last place in the world I ever had any trouble with that. But where I did have trouble was one-on-one stuff. That's where the problems always were. And it's, the gist of it is, my parents were very antisocial and mentally ill. And my mom brainwashed me into thinking that I could never trust anybody. And she made very clear that that included teachers, police, community leaders. No one. I could never trust anyone. She went really hard on the stranger danger stuff, and because of the way that I look, she always told me that if a predator or a kidnapper ever showed up, I'd be the first one they'd grab. So, needless to say, it fucked me up. So, the first really bad incident that I had with selective mutism was on the first day of first grade. I wore overalls because I've always loved overalls, and of course, I'm so young, I struggle with the buttons, as does any child that age. And my mom did warn me once. A typical mother might just overrule the child on something like that, especially on the first day of school, because that's already so stressful to begin with, but she wasn't that kind of mom. She never gave me any rules or boundaries. She never gave me any true guidance. She would say something once, and if I pushed back even just in the slightest, that was it. She'd let it go. I mean, even with going to school, if she told me to get ready and go and I said no one time, she just dropped it. And so I stayed home a lot. But, so that day, I wore the overalls. And of course, the inevitable happened. I had to go to the bathroom. A normal kid might try to do the buttons on their own and then quickly realize that they can't, and then they would go to their teacher and ask her help. I was not able to do that. My teacher was kind, that teacher. I remember her, but I just couldn't do it, especially since I didn't really know her. I had just met her like a couple hours earlier. So instead, I stayed in the bathroom alone, and this was at a school where they had single occupant bathrooms connected to all of the classrooms so that the teachers could, keep an eye on us and everything, and didn't have to go escort kids to the bathroom every 10 minutes. So I went in there, and I just kept trying and trying and trying to, deal with my overalls, and obviously I failed. And then I pissed myself. And because I had been holding it all day, specifically because I was worried about that situation, I had a lot loaded up. I completely soaked myself from the waist down. It was not a small accident. It was very obvious. The whole floor was covered in piss. Now, a normal kid, at that point, would admit that they need help, and they would ask for it. I didn't. Instead, I grabbed a bunch of paper towels and tried to clean up the bathroom. And then my game plan was to stay in the bathroom until my pants dried. That's what I was hoping for. Obviously, that didn't happen. Inevitably, my teacher realized that I wasn't around and that I'd been gone for a while, so she came to the bathroom to see if that's where I was, and on confirmation, she asked if I was okay. And of course, I lied and said I was fine. But after a couple of rounds of that, she got firm and insisted on coming into the room and found me like that. And she was subtle about it, which was really nice. Because I had a lot of bad teachers over the years that wouldn't have shown that kind of kindness. But, she just escorted me out of there quietly to the office to get some clean clothes so that I wouldn't be embarrassed. I mean, I was embarrassed, but so I wouldn't be more embarrassed. And I know I had other incidents before that, but that's the first one that was really, really bad. And then the longest and worst issue I had with it involved my first stepdad. So, my parents got divorced when I was 5, and then my mom remarried very quickly. I mentioned that in a different video. She was always getting married very, very fast. And so my new stepdad, aside from being a light alcoholic, was a very kind, loving, and gentle man. He was a good person. And he loved us both, legitimately. He was one of those rare, good step-parents. He had been married once before, but if I remember right, she passed, and they never had a chance to have kids together. And he really wanted kids. So he didn't have any children of his own. And he took all of that unrequited fatherly love and dumped it on me. And I accepted it willingly because it was a whole other world compared to how things were with my biological father. My stepdad was everything I wished my real dad could be. But for the first 3 or 4 months that we lived with him, not that I knew him, that we lived with him, after he married my mother, I couldn't speak to him at all. Not one word. So the only way I could communicate with him was to relay it through my mom. I would whisper something in her ear, some idea or comment that I was thinking about saying. I'd whisper it to her, and then I would trust her to decide whether or not it should be said. And then she would relay it. And of course, he spoke to me directly. And if you want to know the clearest sign that he was a good person, he never took it personally, and he never got mad at me. He never got impatient because of it. I'm sure he was probably hurt, at least to some extent, but he never showed it. He was patient. He waited for me to come around. And the way that that happened was out of necessity. It could have gone on way longer if it weren't for extenuating circumstances. So what happened was, my mom she had gotten promoted in this new job, and things were looking really good there. So that meant more responsibility, and something happened where she had to work on a Saturday. Normally, I was never left alone with my stepdad. Or if I was, it was only for short periods of time. Normally, because he worked as well. So, typical weekdays were us waking up, and then we would all three go together, and they would drop me off at school, and then they would go to work. And then after I got out of school, I would take the bus to my babysitter's house. From there, when my mom got off work, she'd pick me up and take me home. And then on weekends, they were usually both home. So we were just all three together. I didn't have a lot of one-on-one time with my stepdad. Until the day that that emergency happened, and my mom was called into work. And if it had been a short thing, if it had only been a couple hours, it might not have happened. But she had to do a full, 8 to 10 hour day. So just like in first grade, the inevitable happened. I had to go to the bathroom. What's interesting, though, is the house that we lived in was unfinished. My stepdad did not have a high-paying job, but he did figure out how to buy a very large piece of property on the side of a very pretty but rough mountain, and he was building his own house. But he was in the process of building said house right then. So, we didn't have running water. We had electricity, but we had to do certain things a little differently. And that meant we did not have a bathroom. Our bathtub was literally in the living room, because that's all there was. It was just a giant living room. And then the way we would take baths is boil the water on the wood stove. And then, throw it in the tub. And then throw some cool water in there to balance it out, and you're good. So the bathroom situation, the toilet situation, was a little complicated. And what he did was, he knew it was going to be a while before he could truly finish the house, because he's working a full-time job, so he's just trying to fill this in whenever he has the free time and the free energy. That's the key. Not a lot of extra energy with the line of work that he was in. So he went up to a good spot, and he dug an outhouse. And he actually built a legitimate outhouse around it, which is really nice. I mean, that's a better solution than my second stepdad came up with for a similar situation. So, and at that point in time, I had a severe phobia of plumbing. Anything to do with plumbing. So, drains, dark holes in the ground, I still have trouble seeing a toilet drain after somebody removes the toilet. There's a whole story behind it. I'll have to tell it some other time. But the point is, going to the bathroom was already stressful for me to begin with. And, using an outhouse didn't make it any easier. Because, they stink, and, the idea of falling down into that giant hole of shit, especially when you're a child, when you're actually small enough to fit through said hole, not a fun idea to deal with. So, I never could go up there alone. Cut me some slack. I was 6 years old. Usually, my mom would escort me. And then also another reason why I couldn't go up there alone was because we were out in the middle of the fucking woods. You can't have a small child running around in a place like that on their own. We had cougars and fucking bears and shit hanging out up there. No. So, either way, I could not do it alone. So usually my mom would take me up there. And, of course, a few hours in, it got to the point where I had to go. And I couldn't hold it. And I couldn't go outside alone. Trust me, if it were safe enough for me to just go outside on my own and find a bush to squat behind, I would have. But like I said, not a good idea. We had dogs, but, I mean, I'm sure the dogs would have protected me, but unfortunately, that didn't occur to me. But it doesn't matter anyway, because it needed to happen this way. It really did. So, I had no choice but to ask my stepdad to escort me to the outhouse. And that's how the silence was finally broken. He wasn't mean to me, he didn't tease me, he didn't act like I was a burden. He just walked me up there and made sure I was okay, and then walked me back and everything was fine. And from then on, I couldn't stop chewing his ears off. It wasn't long after that I started calling him Dad. There are other examples, obviously, but these are the two, not worst, but most substantial. I mean, 3-4 months, that's a long time for a small child. It felt like years to me. You want to know why I couldn't speak to my stepdad? The teacher was one thing. She was a stranger, at least as far as I was aware, as I was concerned. But I knew my stepdad. So why couldn't I talk to him? It took me a very, very long time to figure this out, but I did finally figure it out. He was so kind and so different from what I was used to. I was afraid that if I said one wrong thing and pissed him off, it would ruin everything, and things would never be good again. But I think that'll do it for now. So, now you know what selective mutism is. Now you know why it can happen. I mean, everybody's story is different, but that's why it happens for me. Now you understand what it feels like. And it fucking sucks. Especially when you're a full-grown adult. It's not fun to lock up in a situation where you really need to be able to talk. I'm very grateful that it's only a fraction of what it was when I was a child. Because when I was a child, it was really, really bad.